Ladies and gentlemen, another great episode from the Scale Your Real Estate podcast. And this man has been an inspiration to me. I just am so grateful to know him. He's one of the OGs of CoLiving, ladies and gentlemen. I believe he is the first person in the entire United States, to the best of my knowledge, that built a building specific to CoLiving. Now, as it stands, I'm recording this on December 2024. I'm just starting to get into the building of the co-living space. And by the way, I think it's so exciting. It's so fun. It's one of my things I'm so looking forward to, but I've learned a lot from this man. And he just really has an analytical brain about him of how he attacks these problems and thinks things through. And he comes from a numbers background, and he made this switch to co-living and coaching and doing these builds. And so I hope you take a lot away from this. I think Diego will go down in history as one of those people that was a pioneer in this space. And so I'm grateful to have him on the podcast. As always, we're bringing you amazing guests. And guys, if you love this show, or if you even have gotten one thing of value, would you please, we're trying to get the word out about this podcast to more people. Would you please go give it a review, a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify, or give us a comment on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube? That'd be so meaningful. But without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Well, Diego, thanks so much for being on the show, man. I'm incredibly excited about this episode. I know we tried to film once before, and you were having like a hurricane there in Houston, and we were like, let's just refilm it. So we're going to dive in and talk about co-living, talk about you being one of the first, maybe the first, but one of the pioneers in the ground up development project, in the ground up development space in co-living, which I'm just really excited to pick your brain about and kind of allow our listeners to hear what I think is really the new frontier for co-living, and just talk about a couple of lessons that I think are really going to benefit them in terms of how you think about life and how you think about building relationships. So this is going to be an awesome episode, man. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
All right. Thanks for having me, Sam. Really look forward to chatting with you. I know it's been a little bit of time since we talked, but definitely a lot of positive things have happened in the co-living, co-housing world. And I'm very eager to share that here with your community. So thank you for having me on.
You got it, brother. Hey, what I want to do is tell us a little bit about first, how did you even get into co-living? How did this space cross your radar? And what made you so confident to be like, I'm going all in on this space. I'm going to teach it. I'm going to build these from the ground up. Tell me about that.
Oh, absolutely, Sam. One of the important things is where I came from in my real estate investing arena. I started back in May of 2012, and the market was starting to rise a little bit back from the mortgage and housing debacle, and literally got in right before there was a massive saturation of people starting to get into the industry of real estate investing. I came from a financial background as an asset manager, and then quickly got into the technical side of it, which was buying houses, flipping them, and then, obviously actively, making money. So I did something which was really interesting is I got myself educated into the form of real estate technical investing. And then I started to see that I was taking on all the risk. And then when I was taking on all the risk, I was also needing to navigate through what the market is doing. And then all of a sudden, I'm taking all the risk while the market is moving. So I was like, wow, I need a lifeboat, right? I always constantly in this world of real estate investing, you got to find a lifeboat in case the waves get way too choppy. Well, the company in 2013 to 14 morphed into an implementation company where we help. Right now in our company, we've got over 3,000 members in over 27 states. And the way I came across co-living, Sam, was because right around 2.5 years ago, I like to sit and see what are the best avenues for our members to embark on when it comes to their investing world. So I like to go find the lifeboats so I can go back to our family of members and say, guys, here we're placing some strategic lifeboats, right? Co-living came around. I started watching a certain webinar from a gentleman by the name of Frank Furman with a national company called PadSplit. It really piqued my interest. And I said, wow, these guys are putting people in a mission to help affordable housing. But in the eyes of somebody that looks at numbers, all I saw was mitigating risk, hedging vacancies, right? Keeping that negative debt out of my window and not having to stress as an investor, which obviously I believe, Sam, this industry is beautiful, but man, does it come with stress, right? So that's what I try to bring to our members. So in that webinar, I went ahead and sent a message or a question question to Frank Furman and said, hey, I'd love to meet you. I'm literally very interested in this. I'm on my way. Tuesday following, I was at their office. I meet him and he's like, wow, you're really here? And I'm like, yes. I said, I do things in a very different way, I guess old fashioned, because I like to meet people the same way I literally flew over there to meet you and your organization, which, by the way, I had an amazing time. You have such an amazing following group of people, which I think that day was Tony Robbins Day. Man, that was awesome. That was super energy packed, and your wife was also amazing. So again, thank you for that hospitality.
Pleasure.
And so I go and I talk to Frank and I say, hey, Frank, show me around. What is it that you got? So he said, let's go. We get into a car. We start touring some of the pad split homes that they've got. They're all renovation, right? They're renovated units. Some of them renovated, some of them not renovated. They start splitting the rooms. And I start to see, wow, this is an amazing model. There's a lot, it has some legs to it. They've proven the concept. But then I started to see, wait a minute, there's 3 to 4 bathrooms to 3 to 4 bedrooms to 1 bathroom. And I said, whoa, this might cause a little bit of problem. And that's my risk mitigation head going. And I told Frank, I said, have you thought about new construction? And he goes, no, never really have. I said, well, I've been doing this for over a decade. We do new construction projects all day long. I said, I'll be right back. So literally flew back to Houston, got the team together. I said, you got 36 hours because I'm headed back over there with some plans. And we put together our new construction model. And the new construction model is a 100% new build, caters anywhere from 7 all the way up to 12 bedrooms with private baths. We can put them in zoned areas, non-zoning areas. We can go into the multifamily facet. We can go, all of it depending on what the local municipality calls for code, right? And building characteristics. But with that, Frank goes, wow, all private baths? I'm like, yeah. So we showed him how we convert homes the same way you convert an existing renovated home. We're going to convert the new homes. And with that, we started working 2.5 years later. We've got many units on the ground. We've got other ones in planning. We've got a list of over 131 members that are waiting for these opportunities to come around, Sam. And right now, we just can't find enough land in over 27 states to put these on. You see, so that's why I love what you do, because I think this definitely is a way to spread the news, because this works not just in the affordable housing arena. It works for traveling nurses. It works for everybody that needs that little help right now with this economy and the way things are going. But yeah, we literally fell in love with it.
Man, there's so many cool things about what you just shared. I think one of them is, I really like how you describe this as a lifeboat, right? And look, I mean, in real estate, I 100% agree with you, Diego. It's like real estate has ups and downs. But one of the things that's nice and that I tell people all the time is, I own CoLiving homes. And yes, I have had, out of say a home with 8 rooms, I've had 4 people not there. I've even had sometimes 5 people not there. But I've never been 100% vacant, ever.
Right.
Not even once since I started. It's like, I mean, except from when it was like being rehabbed at the very beginning. So what you're saying is, I hope what people are taking away is that is one of the cool aspects of this model is you are producing some revenue, which helps with the bills. And that's really cool. It is kind of like a lifeboat in that way. So I like the way you described that. Really cool. I want you to tell the audience a little bit more about, because man, I think there's this saying that says your network is your net worth or something like that. And I've noticed in the short time I've gotten to know you is that you are very relationship based, and that and one of the things we're going to talk about in this episode is how you've advocated even as far up as the White House for CoLiving. And so, which is so cool. What is it about you that gets you to just book these flights? Like, what is it about in-person meetings that you don't feel like you can get through a Zoom call? Like, why didn't you just Zoom call Frank? Or when you met me, why didn't you just say, hey, let's set up a Zoom call? Like, I'm really curious about that. Teach us.
Oh man, I have to say is the most important. Wow, that's a great question, Sam. The most important thing is the time that we've been given, right, on this earth. So we try to value it as best we can with the best people we can work with. And so definitely when I say I'm going to spend my time to get on a plane to go visit you, there have been things that I have seen that is worth us spending time together to get to know each other. And then when you have better relationships with people, both people come together for whatever that purpose is. Because I tell this to people, Sam, all day long. We are not in real estate. We are in the people business. And when you understand people's whys, you understand what their direction is, what their risk tolerance is, now you're building a bigger effort of people behind you to go and make those larger steps, as in going and knocking on the White House's door, right? Or going on and talking to the mayorals of certain cities and opening up certain markets. You're not out there trailblazing anymore. You're out there actually making some positive steps with the right people. So we're in the people business first. That's how I see it.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. So talk to us about if someone listening to this, because I have some people in my world that really do want to advocate for more affordable housing solutions. And some cities and counties aren't fully on board with the co-living thing yet. They kind of, maybe they don't like it, or maybe they don't understand it, or they think it's a boarding house, or they think it's a rooming house. So tell us a little bit about, how do you go about advocating for co-living in any arena, all the way up to the White House, and how could someone else get more involved in that process? I'm hoping people will take away, if they want to be an advocate, I'm hoping they can learn from what you've done and how you've done it.
Great question. The best thing I can do is you first jump into a car and you go visit exactly the market that you want to be in.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to understand what's happening in Baltimore, in Detroit, in New Jersey, in Atlanta. You're never going to understand what those markets are unless you actually physically go there and drive. I got to experience that from Charlotte, where I went to go visit you, because that's part of our job. That's part of us understanding the risk. So when we started here in Houston, we were going to the neighborhoods that we saw the affordable housing was going to be working in, because and I always say this with the most respect, we don't have co-living units near Whole Foods, because when Whole Foods did their research and development, they know that if you pay a box of cereal at $8, you don't need co-housing, right? So we physically go and walk those markets. We understand, talk about the retail, and then we start to talk to the local influence. And from the local influence, it dictates to the chain of command up to where we need to be. And then we basically create a game plan that helps everybody. And at the end of the day, Sam, you walk into these communities, you drive into these communities, and you see the people, you're helping them. Everybody's rising at the same time. And we're seeing some economic growth. We're seeing city infrastructure growth. We're seeing the school district ratings starting to change, repaving of streets, lighting.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I love that. So you would advocate for starting, if someone wanted to advocate and get this to be more accepted, you would advocate. Do you think it's better to start at the local level and talking to, say, the mayor and the county officials or city code officials? I mean, is that the place to kind of start chatting about this and seeing how open they are to putting 6 or 7 or 8 people in a home? Or do you think it's better to go higher? Because I also know you've gone as far as the White House. Do you think it's better to say, hey, I'm going to start, like I know Colorado just recently passed a law. The governor just passed a law that said, like, you can't regulate how many unrelated people are in a house. And so all the local municipalities have to follow that state law, right? So I guess my question is, do you think we start higher and work our way down? Or do you think we start lower and work our way up if we're trying to really advocate for this being the affordable housing solution?
Start from the beginning. Get down to the street level. Consult with maybe your chamber of commerce there. Go to some of the city planning meetings. Understand what is actually happening in that community, and then start to make some positive movements. Real estate is available at any level of what your exit strategy is, but here we have the ability as investors to actually help that community grow, have that mission, set roots, build better commerce. And at the end of the day, if you really look at your investment, it's constantly growing because that community is growing with it. And so I think that's definitely a positive thing.
That's great, man. So, hey, talk us through a little bit of the details. What was your process like? How did your team, and I know you have a team that helps you with this, but when you went to go design, the first ever pad split building. You're the pioneer. You're the first guy there, which I have a couple of ground up construction projects in the works right now for CoLiving. So I feel like I'm following in your footsteps, man. I feel like you're the pioneer, and now I'm getting to kind of stand on your shoulders and learn from what you learned. And I've seen some of the plans that you've created, and they are badass. But how did you first come up with those? Like, just what was going through your head about private baths versus shared baths? I kind of want to know, like, what thought process went into actually designing one of these really cool buildings that you have? Like, you have from 7 all the way up to 12. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, we didn't reinvent the wheel. Ideally, we got to look at the numbers and what will make something affordable in that particular area. So we always started off with what is being built in that market to give us an after constructed value. That's always our starting point. And then what we do, we start backing in to what we can build. Now, obviously, we want to be able to build the Taj Mahal for everybody in the affordable housing arena, but there's just not enough room in that particular market at that time to do so. So as we started backing in, we started to notice that let's not build an octagon, let's just build a rectangle, right? Simple rectangle, 28, 30 wide by 60 deep. And we're getting into 1,700, 1,800 square feet. And then we started to realize, wow, that's how they build double wide mobile homes, right? Or manufactured homes. And then we started to say, okay, if that's how easy it is to build on one side and build on another side, then we started to say, the team said, well, let's just build 4 bedroom, 4 bath, because it's very simple and there's still comparable data for that. It's the same as if that house was 30 years old being built like that. What do we have to then convert to turn it into now a 7 bedroom, 7 bath home? So we didn't reinvent the wheel. We went with what was out there and then just basically made it a lot more efficient. And the simplicity of it is, if a mobile home or manufactured home can be produced very, very fast, we should stick build this thing very, very fast. And we went with those things. And that's the key, Sam, having a good team with you, because it's not just you pushing this boat on your own. You rely on the people like your architects, your engineers, your project managers, your builders, because I had some crazy ideas and I got them all shut down. But at the end of the day, we got to where we needed to go, right?
So Diego, you coach a lot of investors. You've got thousands and thousands of members that are part of your community, which is called Strata Ventures. Yes. What is your advice for someone who wants to create passive income through real estate? And tell us a little bit about the journey you take people through, and how co-living, co-housing plays into that journey.
Oh man, that's the life of what we do here. Everybody, and I tell people this, 85% of the people that come into real estate investing, Sam, do not come from prior real estate experience. So let's think about that. So number one, we try to make sure that our member or clients or people that just want to get to know us know that we all have to be on the same page of what our identity is. And I always ask a question first when I meet somebody, Sam. I say, what does a real estate investor do, Sam Wegert? Then guess what happens? You're going to get their answer. And then if I ask that same question to 5 other people, we're going to get 5 different answers. And we've heard it before, right? You ask 5 attorneys the same question, you get 5 different answers, right? So now imagine you're in the world of real estate where 85% of the people come from different walks of life. Ask the same question. You're going to get so much risk, because what's a good comp? What are good repairs? Should we do this? Should we do that? And at the end of the day, everybody's in a massive melting pot of risk. So what do, Sam? We deactivate that mentality. We make them be just an investor. And then we tell them, here's your definition. An investor analyzes, they act, they invest, and they profit with one word in mind, and that word is risk, Sam. It's that simple, risk. So let me break it down for you here. Acting. That means, guess what? Working with the renovation, with the budgets. If you have never changed anything more than a toilet seat, why are you quoting repairs? Why are you talking about that? Data is high risk. What about analyzing, pulling comparable data, which is your starting point? If you're doing all that yourself and you've never done that yourself, that's high risk. So you got high risk comps, high risk repairs. What kind of investing are you going to do? High risk lending, right? So that's why you go and first talk to hard money lenders. And then if the deal doesn't work well, Sam, you blame the HML, right? You blame the hard money lender. But guess what? They took a chance on your high risk comps and your high risk repairs. What we do is we try to make sure your realtors and your contractors and your team is vetted out for you. So now you stay in the seat of being an investor. That means your risk data has been mitigated. You now make an analysis based on learning how to be an investor. And at the end of the day, the profit side, an investor, Sam, looks at the percentage sign. They don't look at the dollar sign. So that's why our members work off velocity of money. And if velocity of money, how many times can we recycle the private lending capital so our members can gain their earnings? And now guess what they get to do? They get to put it into passive investments. And now co-housing happens to be the best place to put your passive investments right now. We mitigated the vacancy, have an ability to practice what we like to call real estate chemistry, which is as the prevailing rents in the market grow, so do your rental rates, always staying below the market. You're always going to end up occupied because there's a lot more people needing what we need. But at the end of the day, once you park so much money into an investment, you got to go back to the active world of flips and practice more velocity of money. So that's what we do. We're a factory, right? We produce a lower risk investor. We fund the lower risk investor, and now they get to decide actively and passively what they want to do nationally.
So your whole goal, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing it that way. I love the way your brain thinks about this. And I think it really comes from your numbers background. You were an asset manager in a previous life, right? You did that. So you're bringing that into real estate, whereas most real estate guys, frankly, are just real estate guys. Like they started in real estate, at least in my experience, and they've got all. So tell us a little bit more about risk. How do you think about risk? Why is risk the number one thing that you're bringing everything back to?
Great. Risk is something that comes in every single person's ability to assess their risk. Meaning if you're a excited individual, if you're very optimistic, you might be the riskiest person in real estate, right? Because you're going to try to turn that house into a potential gem, but then you're now taking roles of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole when it comes to cost assessments. I like to say you're going to try to build a Mercedes with Hyundai parts, even though Hyundai has produced great vehicles. It's not the same once you step on the gas, right? Or what is the consumer going to think that price is? So when you definitely start to find out your risk tolerance and you can keep the emotional side out of it, then at that point, real estate is available, I believe, for everybody. But our job is to identify that risk first with you before you transfer that risk over to the financial side. So again, we're back into the people business, right?
How does the average person that's maybe even getting started, how do they really think about, how should they really think about risk? Is it as simple as just being more pessimistic? Like I kind of hear that's what you're saying. You're like, hey, the most optimistic person in real estate sometimes is the most risky person because they might not have all the data, or they might be looking at something too good. And I'm trying to just break this down into the most simple terms. So is it, how does, like if you were coaching me on really thinking about risk as an asset manager would, is it just like, hey, be more pessimistic, look at all the bad things that could happen? I mean, is that the action item here? Or how am I thinking about it?
No, you never want to be pessimistic in this world either. You have to set yourself certain checkpoints. And the question is, should I do it? Right? Should I play the role of the realtor when I'm not a realtor? Should I play the role of the contractor when I'm not a contractor? You should always ask yourself those questions, because if you have to think, I'm about to go into this transaction based off of my own knowledge, and you're doubting yourself, already you're on the wrong path. That's why, Sam, I tell people this, and I ask them, do you know what the scariest day is of a brand new investor is? Do you know what the scariest day is?
Day one?
The day their first offer gets accepted, Sam. Because now they got to go, I have to trust my own comps. I got to trust vetting out this contractor, and I've never done that before. Oh boy. Now who's going to fund me? Well, that's why a lot of times they fund themselves. And that's why this industry brings about a 90% failure rate, Sam. And people don't talk about that because they go in on their own risk tolerance, and then nobody wants to take a chance on them, and they end up using their own money. And then all of a sudden they've left this beautiful industry of real estate investing. And we try to stop that. So first ask yourself, should we?
Look, I wasn't planning on asking you this question, but but I want to ask it now that you mentioned the 90% failure rate. So, okay. So managing risk, which for you is staying in your zone of genius, like doing the thing that you know you're good at, but not trying to be a contractor, not trying to be an appraiser, not trying to be do the thing you're good at. What are some of the other things that someone can do, specific things that someone can do to not be a part of that 90% failure rate?
I would have to say one thing that I learned from when I met you, you used the word superpower, right? I had never heard that before in my life. You asked me, what's my superpower? And I think my superpower was the ability to understand how I stay in my lane. And the most important thing was understanding why I should stay in my lane and trust and delegate to the people that are going to bring me the lower risk. And so when you start to think about, number one, what are the failures that you've had, then you start to then work better to help yourself, because then at the end of the day, you're going to bring that to whoever you work with. And I believe that's confidence, right? That comes with confidence in having the ability to survive in this industry and to be successful. And if I had to give you probably something that I love to tell our members is, if you're brand new in this industry, Sam, and you go to a big room of real estate investors, walk in there, introduce yourself and say, hi, my name is Diego Melo, and I am new at this. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm here to learn. I guarantee you more people are going to go, oh, thank God, Diego. Whew, I was feeling the same way. And now everybody starts at the same level, because it's very easy for people to start kind of inflating their knowledge, right? Feeling more overconfident than what they are. And people tend to flock to other people in this industry. Hence, you start to reduce that risk, that failure rate, because now everybody's on the same page.
Right. Very good. You told me when I met you, you said something to me that kind of took me by surprise, and I want you to explain a little bit of how your mindset is around this, because it's different than most investors that I know. You said, my goal for everybody in my community is to one day become a private money lender. That's the goal I have. Why is that the end goal for your members, and why is that so important?
Great question. Thanks, Sam. Becoming a private money lender is like flipping the funnel of opportunity in your direction. But you can't just automatically say, I have this ton of money and I'm going to go lend money, right? Because I'm a big believer that you got to learn how to borrow money before you learn how to lend money. We've got members of different caliber, some that I can't talk about. And in that conference room in our office, I tell them, you've got the most money, but you're the dangerous person right now because you haven't gone through the underwriting side of this, right? The risk mitigation side. And so it's very important that a person first goes through these steps when they do this. Walk into a real estate investment forum or a community meeting or something and give your elevator pitch. Hi, my name is Diego Melo at Strata Ventures. I'm a local real estate investor and I'm looking to buy a good property to flip. Everybody right now, because the way this is so saturated, Sam, is going to hold on to the good and they're going to push out the bad. Imagine you receiving the bad and you don't know the underwriting, what we talked about, the analyzing, acting, investing, and profiting and risk. you're on the bad road from day one. But as you start to gain opportunity and learning and recycling capital, then imagine you walk into that same room later on and you go, hi, my name is Diego Melo at StrataVentures and I'm a private money lender. What do you think is going to happen? Everybody's going to start throwing deals at you, the good, the bad, the ugly. But if you don't know how to mitigate the risk or you have a support team behind you, you can't partake on all of those great deals to help more people. That's why when we say we privately fund everybody in our company, is because we've had people go from active investing, Sam, to becoming private lenders. Then in turn, now they're investing their hard work into a lower risk product, which is a lower risk investor who we produce. That's why we want them to become private money lenders. You're still part of real estate.
Yeah, you're probably going to get paid first on that real estate if you're the lender versus the person who is. You're reducing your risk. You're getting in first. That's a really interesting way to think about it, man. I love that. So, hey, I'm going to be I do like the idea. I did have a friend one time who he wanted to learn about real estate. And so he walked into a meetup and he had no money, but he was Asian. And he said, if I say I'm a private money lender and I'm Asian, he's like, everybody will think that my parents have money or I have a bunch of money. And the way he tells the story is hilarious. So he introduced himself just like you said. He goes, I'm a private money lender. And you're right. Now people are bringing their coolest, best deals. And he's getting to see behind the curtain. And that is a really interesting strategy. And then he becomes the lender on those deals. That's fascinating. What advice do you have for someone who maybe doesn't have the capital now, wants to create financial freedom? Where do they start in this journey? Obviously, if they don't have the capital, they can't start being a private money lender. They can't. It's even difficult at that point to get into real estate in general if you have zero capital or you have very little capital. Where do you recommend someone start on the journey if they're truly just beginning and they're capital poor?
All right. I'm not gonna say here a plug or anything. I would say go to StrataVentures.com and then set up an appointment with me because my calendar is under Team SVI. And I have sat, Sam, with people for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours just so they can get to know where to start. Because at the end of the day, as long as we can plant a good seed and a good mentality, they're going to go out and follow certain small bits that we give them. If they decide to work with us, they come back here. And guess what? Now they're on that journey of learning how to be an investor. But I would say, number one, go out there with open eyes and an open heart and meet people in real estate. Get a feel if somebody's willing to actually help you. Because people with no money, Sam, are the ones we love to work with because guess what they have? They've got drive, they've got a want, they've got a need, and they're willing to be trained. They are the ones we want to work with. I'm a big believer, and honestly, I built my company based off of helping people that have been in the real estate education arena who have dealt with other types of education, but there never was that follow through. There was never that, what do I do now? Who's going to hold my hand? That's why my company was created. And we do it enough that we'll even invest in you as long as you give us your time, as long as you do something for yourself. We have a saying here, we'll give you 1,000% as long as you give us 100%.
Wow. Yeah, man, I've always been really impressed as I've kind of talked with some of your students, and I know we have some students in common, and I've always been impressed with, you take that time, you're very hands-on, you're very personal, you really make sure people get it, and then you're willing to go as far as, okay, we've got someone in the group or you yourself are going to fund that deal. And that's a pretty cool thing. I was doing a podcast yesterday with somebody that her whole thing is just raising capital for deals, not only for her own deals, but some for other people's deals, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to ask this question as we kind of wrap up here. If I'm doing the lending, if I'm now a private money lender, what do I need to be thinking about in terms of risk before I give a loan?
Great. Number one, you got to like the person you're going to be lending money to. Like them as a person. And if you like them as a person, then everybody is going to show all their cards. And now you're going to go to data validation. Where did the data come from? How is it put together? 2, look at the structure. How is this being structured? And 3, is there a mutual beneficial positive result at the end of the day? Because you have an investor who's looking at a monetary gain based off of an investment, and then you have the borrower looking for growth in income or capital to continue to do that with more private money lenders. That's why, Sam, I'm going to tell you something that might blow your mind here. We only let in to the SVI family 144 members a year because we're only there for quality over quantity. Wow. We want one PML to work with 2 or 3 high-producing investors, and now you have basically small ecosystems that are being created of production. It's very easy to replicate. We're not reinventing the wheel, because the majority of the time we do spend is working with people and helping people be better at what they do in our system. The money will always be there. We don't worry about the capital. It's the money comes because we produce better people. That's in a nutshell what we do.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Well, Diego, this has been awesome, man. I want to kind of end with a couple of quick more rapid fire questions. But first, I want to know, what do you think the future of co-living is? As we're here on July 25th, 2024, what do you foresee the next 3 to 5 years for the co-living space being?
We're at the tip of the iceberg, Sam. We now have established the groundwork of ground up, community rising. We're seeing more advocacy. We now have lenders that are coming to us, because 2.5 years ago, I was going to the lenders and banks and getting shot down. Now they're coming to us. I mean, we've got guys flying in and saying, we want your exclusive business. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. That feels great. But I see co-living not just for the affordable housing space. I see it now rising to things like what you do, Sam, which totally blew my mind. You're in more affluent neighborhoods, you're opening it up more to the more established type of consumer, the higher rental rate, because now co-living is not just a necessity. It's eventually going to be a necessity and then a potential lifestyle that you can pick. I love that, because it opens up to traveling nurses, student housing, veterans. I talked to an organization of just pure flight attendants, and they're like, what? You mean I don't have to share a bed with 5 other flight attendants? I could have my own room? They're like, yeah. I was like, I had no idea that flight attendants they share beds, like 3 or 4 to 1 bed, and they call them hot shots or something, or they call them something. I'm like, oh my God. So we're at the tip of the iceberg, Sam. So, and there's plenty of market share for everybody. Nobody should be claiming this. It's just people need to work together and take a good equal part of what's going on.
What do you say to someone who says, oh, well, is the market saturated? Like, there are some bigger players that have gone in here. We've gotten spattered. What's your response to that?
Oh, there's never saturation. I believe there's never saturation, because there's only so many units yourself can take on, which fills your appetite, which fills what you're comfortable with. Go get it. I mean, in Houston, there's an ability to about almost 1,800 units. I mean, Sam, would you like to have 100 of the 1,800, or do you want 10 of them? Go get 5 more in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Birmingham, Alabama, Las Vegas. There really isn't saturation, because when the larger groups go out for the bigger bites, there's a lot more smaller groups that want to work with you. And there's plenty out there for everybody. We would love to help as many people as possible.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah. And when you really look at like how many people, when you look at inflation too, I think, and you look at like how many people truly make under like $60,000 a year, $50,000 a year, and are going to have difficulty in a Charlotte or a Vegas or a San Francisco affording a studio apartment, which is normally the cheapest thing in any city. Like, yeah, there's millions and millions and millions of those people. So no, our Pad Split's 15,000 units as it sits today is not barely scratching the surface, and they're the biggest, right?
Exactly.
So that's crazy. Well, man, I want to get your wisdom on two more questions and then we'll wrap up. What is your, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot with this one, but what's one of your biggest regrets? And I know you may not say you have any regrets. What's one of your biggest regrets in your career and in real estate more specifically? And what would you do differently?
I think I would have been, when I first started with the real estate education that I received, I wish I would have been not as emotionally charged as how they put it out there, because I should have been more to my gut of being more risk averse and asking more questions. I do regret that. But it's also those failures that I had my first year, Sam, allowed me to pull the curtain back in the industry and figure out what was really behind there. And that's what set the fire for Strata Ventures to be an implementation company for people. So I have a regret of not doing that, being more risk averse, but I turned something negative into a positive, and now it's a tool that everybody can use.
I know it's a little bit vulnerable, but you did share that story with me. Would you mind, we have a couple more minutes here, would you mind just sharing that story?
Sure.
I actually think it would be very beneficial for people to kind of learn from
Absolutely.
that.
Sure, absolutely. The world of real estate investing and the education is brought out there to basically give a message that everybody wants to be financially safe, right? Everybody wants to have financial freedom, but at what cost? And you have to think about that. You know, if it was really that good and people can become millionaires overnight, everybody would be doing this, right? That's that standard saying that they say out there. So when I went there to an organization to pay $50,000 to get my real estate education, I felt that the value meant I can trust their knowledge and their credibility. It was great information. It was good. But when the information is requiring me to wear all the hats, nobody addressed the risk of Diego. Do you see what I mean? And so my first year, I lost about $160,000 following the steps and processes of national coaches. But at the end of the day, I was the one assuming all the risk. And so with that said, is I then in my first year of losses pulled the emergency brake. And then I said, wow, something just happened here. Why did I fail with such a lot of information? Is I started to realize I was the biggest risk, Sam. So the best way I can explain it is like this. You know, when you go to a Best Buy or an electronics store and you see the same computer for $400 and the same one for $900, why do you think people pick the one that's $900 the most? Because they think it's better. No, you're not going to use half of the software that's in there. Just get the $400 one and let the business call for itself, and your growth eventually comes. Does that make sense? And I learned that lesson. I was very fortunate to be able to take some of those losses, but they were possibly critically life-changing. But I had to stick to my guns, you know, pedal to the metal. I was going to survive, or I was going to go bankrupt or die or whatever. The point behind that is people have the ability to first ask questions and really find out, is this a good fit for me?
Yeah, man, that's huge. I think the emotions around that, especially since it was like your first foray. And if I remember correctly, you were making a transition from a big job to real estate, right? Wasn't that kind of around that time? So I don't know if did you quit your W-2 at that point or no?
I did. The same weekend, I paid $50K, called up the wife and said, hey, by the way, we're $50K short in the account. And then I said, I also quit my job. So Sam, I'm excited leaving this place. The closer I got into the neighborhood around the corner to my house, by the time I was opening the door, my hand was shaking because reality was setting in.
Yeah.
Man, talk about motivation.
Wow. It's just, I mean, two things come to my mind. First of all, you did the hard decision. Now, granted, that didn't work out how you wanted to, but arguably there is an argument for that $50,000 is what led you to being the success you are today.
All day long. All day long. I always tell myself, I think I was just too stupid to quit.
So I think that's amazing. But then also, like, I see people, I mean, I was texting someone today. She was buying a co-living home. And she was saying, hey, like it really, this home that I worked, all this stuff happened. It didn't work out how I wanted it to work out. And I was trying to sympathize with her. I said, real estate can punch you in the face sometimes, but you didn't quit, right? And you didn't stop, and you kept going. And success is, I believe, to a large extent, for people who show up consistently over and over again. And you did that, man. And that's an inspirational story, because I mean, taking $160,000 in losses and then having the emotional weight of quitting your job and having all of that. I mean, that I don't want to just gloss over that. That is a huge life-changing moment. And you turned it into something beautiful through just grinding it out. And that's a beautiful thing and a beautiful lesson to kind of end this on. So, man, I want people to be able to get in touch with you. I want them to be able to connect with you. What's the best way for them to follow your journey, follow your story, get in touch with you? How do they reach out to you?
Sam, they simply go to strataventures.com. There's a button there that says Team SVI. Our company member bios are in there, the core team. My phone number's there. My email is there. My direct calendar is there. Click, book it. Let's start to get to know each other. People tell me, Sam, all the time, is I can't believe you have your personal calendar in there. I go, why not? Why not? I may be talking to the next mass producer in the business. Let's talk. Yeah. Let's get to know each other.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time. I know your time is very valuable. Thank you so much for taking time, sharing your wisdom with us, Diego. Can't wait for this episode to get out. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, brother.
You're very welcome, Sam, and I appreciate your time, and we are always sharing information, so don't hesitate to ask.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that didn't disappoint. Was that not amazing? Hopefully we're able to take something away from that. God bless you guys. Thank you for reviewing the podcast and for helping share the word about co-living and about becoming financially free through this asset class to as many people as possible. God bless you guys, and we'll see you for the next episode.